and welcome. I want to welcome everyone to our last of our special edition of BWARP, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program. All this month, we've been talking about ways to make more money, and more money. Last week, we covered the opportunities available in the fast-growing gig economy. We all know to attain, retain, and sustain wealth often requires us to augment, supplement, and complement our primary source of income. We also address ways to take full advantage of technology that allows us to do big business independently and virtually through e-commerce. We started our series by examining the potential income that can be achieved through platforms like Airbnb and/or by adding an ADU to the property we own. All to emphasize that we must be creative in our approach to wealth building. The intent of this special More Money series is to plant some seeds that can grow into wealth-building trees of success. Tonight, we close out with Rewirement for personal success. But before I introduce our speaker, I want to remind everybody that if you have a question during our presentation, put them in the Q&A or the chat, and our producer, Jacinda Moten, will make sure you get the answer during the Q&A portion of our program. Our speaker tonight is Daryl Brown. He's a retired Senior Vice President for Consumer Banking who led the Southern California region of U.S. Bank. For over 47 years, Daryl held leadership and management roles within the banking industry and is one of the highest ranking African Americans in retail banking. His most important assignment, at least in my humble opinion, was as executive sponsor for diversity and inclusion, overseeing the design and implementation of D&I strategies for all of U.S. Bank. His achievements and recognitions are too vast to mention, but I will tell you, he spent time as the finance chair and treasurer of our sponsor, the Los Angeles Urban League. As it relates to personal finance, Daryl will tell you high achievement always takes place in the framework of high expectation. With that concept in mind and his passion for helping people realize their life's desires, he created the Rewirement Project. Daryl, the floor, or should I say the internet, is yours, and I'd like you to start by telling us the origin of Rewirement.
Hi, Daryl, unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me okay? How's that? Is that
Yes.
good? Is that better? Hey, Gerald. Hey, man, it's always a pleasure, man, to be part of BWARP. The work that you do with Parkside, the work you do with the Urban League is something that's indeed very special. I couldn't be more happy to have another opportunity to spend some time with you. And to all those that are listening in or watching right now, I just want to say thank you for your time's worth. I know that you have many opportunities to do something a little bit different, but you chose to be with us. And I feel an obligation to make sure I bring some value to this time. So I'm really, really happy with that. So Gerald, love you, brother. Love what you do. Love the impact you have in the community. All the speakers that have preceded me, they're dear friends of mine, and the work and the expertise they bring is something that's very special. And I'm just honored and humbled to be part of that group, Gerald. Hey, Gerald, I know that you often ask me, where the term rewirement came from. And I thought if I'd like to just sort of take a moment and share with you a little bit about my personal history and what's taken place for the last couple of years. So about 3 years ago, I retired from banking, as Gerald said, after 47 years. And people would often say, Daryl, I can't see that you're going to, that you're going into retirement. I'm an A personality. I'm committed to the community. I love helping people. I love being a leader in the community. All those things are really important to me. It's just a gift God has given me. And I respond by saying that it's not, retirement. For me, it's rewirement. And people would always say that they love it. So what I did is, as I started to take an inward journey, started to think about what I want to do post-bank, I knew God was not through with me yet, Gerald. So I created something called the Rewirement Project. Here's the other thing, too, that I learned during this period. About 7 months after retirement, I was diagnosed with the worst cancer imaginable. Almost stage 4. I sort of had moments of anxiety. some moments of depression. It's not uncommon. So I had some time off to rethink not only my value and how what I was going to do post-retirement, and of course, living with retirement. So there was a moment that I started to realize the importance of taking an inward journey. And I had to think about rewirement and what it means. And really, rewirement is another term for change and transition and transformation. Regardless of what was thrown at me, whether it be a change in job, which many of us have experienced, or the health issues that many of us are faced with, we have a choice to sort of think differently, to kind of rewire our process, to make sure that we stay in that pocket of positivity. Because it's very easy for me to go down that rabbit hole of regret, that rabbit hole of despair. And I said, nope, I'm not going to do that. Thus, I created the Rewirement Project because I knew that I could make a difference for those that were faced with challenges or change or cataclysmic events. So I went from rewirement being a noun to activating it, Daryl, and rewirement being a verb. And so the work that I do today is what I call a mindset coach, and how we take that and help manifest things for those that are aligned with individuals' goals and their purpose and all those kinds of things. So thus, I created the Rewirement Project, which focuses on executive coaching, business strategy, personal success planning. And if you look at the bottom of this screen, rewirement is requirement, where the evolution of change unfolds. The other thing I'll say, I've watched the news over the years. Of course, we're mastering and doing a lot of things in the universe. Recently, we're learning a lot about the metaverse. One thing we haven't done is really focus on what I call the innerverse, the gateway to that inward journey. That's really where things start to happen. And on the cusp of rewirement is contemplation. And that's where we start to think about, our potential and who we can become as individuals and professionals and business owners, community servants, etc. So please, let's go to the next slide. What is rewirement? Rewirement is simply change without compromise. Your personal, your business success is tethered towards the state of mental and behavioral progression, as each of us have the ability to reimagine and to pursue a better picture, a better future, regardless of what we think and what all the challenges are, all those intruders that live in our brain called saboteurs. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Let's go to the next slide. Here's the description for rewirement. I want you to take a look at this slide very carefully. Mental movement. I'm not sure what that means to you, but all of us have and will become more aware if you pause and start to think about all the things that formulate in your mind and the kinds of things that will help us to think a little bit differently. Are our thoughts negative? Are they positive? Do we have a choice to change those thoughts? I'm going to go into that in just a moment. Do we find our purpose? What is our purpose? Why do we do something? Setting goals. Many years ago, Gerald, this story, I used to ask people, tell me what your goals are. Everybody had the same goal. A lot of money, big house, send the kids to college, good health, world peace, take care of their parents, all kinds of things. And most folks pretty much had the same goal. But here's the question that was always asked. For every goal that you have, why? Because the reasons behind the goal are stronger than the goal itself. I've always felt that. So as I retired and started to immerse myself in this inward journey, I started to learn a lot about myself, areas that I didn't even want to acknowledge. But I knew when I look at the prescription for rewirement, all of these things, overall wellness, I learned a lot about cancer. I learned a lot about Black men, even after diagnosis, will not even go back to the doctor for treatment. I learned it's a subject that many men don't talk about, and I hone in men because obviously being a male and having been faced with cancer, those things are really important for me to sort of better understand. My mental wellness. It's not uncommon for us to think about wellness holistically. We've got relationship wellness. We got finance wellness. We got career wellness. All those kinds of things are really important. Self-development, which is why you're on the call today, just to get a little bit more information that might make a difference in your life. Learning. I think all of us, great leaders are great students. And I think it's a prescription for rewirement when you immerse yourself to learn particularly with all the things that BWARP has presented over the last few weeks, and finding that spiritual place. It really, really is important. Prescription for rewirement is really self-mastery, and you got to be committed. Half-baked, lukewarm, in the middle, on the fence, that it doesn't work. It's either yay or nay. As I tell people, I never did like Humpty Dumpty. You know which way to fall. Make a decision about your well-being. Learn the principles of what it is to go inward. Regardless of your faith and your beliefs, we all have to find a moment. I pray every day. I have my moments of meditation. It's where I can quiet my mind. It's really, really important that you look at this list and sort of take notes. Let's go to the next slide. Here's some of the things I always said, like expressions for rewirement, things and quotes and themes that's really made a difference for me. If we don't exercise rewirement capabilities, we cripple our ability to deal with problems. And here's what's interesting about that. And this is a mathematical truism. You can't have a solution without a problem. The question is, do you spend more time on the solution, or do you spend more time on the problem? Those that embrace a problem, and make cataclysmic events or challenges or problems a friend, are the ones that usually get more productivity. They contribute to more success. It shapes our behaviors when you start thinking about being on the front end of change or rewirement. We become more aware of the choices that we make. We can harness more power and strengthen our ability to solve, ability for resolve, for the kinds of things that we're faced with every day, because we all have a story. Rewirement helps us break through the walls of procrastination. I call these diseases, by the way. Some of them, and I call it disease because we all are afflicted by them. And you have the cure. Procrastination, complacency, doubt, fear. All of us are faced with these things. And I remember I was so good at some of this stuff. I had to rethink it. And I always was very much aware of the impact, the negative impact that it had on the way my brain works. All those saboteurs, those intruders that lived in my brain, the intruder of fear. In fact, as you start to think about that inward journey and the discussion and the awareness you get around these things, I started to give them names. I started to have conversations with myself, and that's okay. I would give them Freddie Fear, Danny Doubt. You just Annie Analytical, Oscar Overthink, Negative Nancy. And I would tell them mentally to sit on the bench, because it's really your subconscious that's going to control this. I'm going to show that to you in just a moment. Are your thoughts intentional or are they unintentional? Where do they come from? All those things are going to be really, really important as you start to think about the voice that you have and replace some of those internal voices with Patty Positive and Billy Bold. I give them male and female names. Let's go to the next slide. Spiritual practice for you. I think this makes a lot of sense. And by the way, I've often said, if you want to study success, if you want to be successful, study success. And I've had the great pleasure in my career over 47 years, the work I did in DC, a lot of legislative work, meeting with senators. Some of the great minds of this country. I've had the pleasure of being part of a think tank with Google many years ago. Don't believe everything you think. But you think about that for a moment. Our aim is to awaken ourselves and have an awareness of our thoughts. It's a journey to that path of enlightenment. You are not always your thoughts. Let me prove my point. Let's go to the next slide. Two categories of thought. As I said earlier, are your thoughts intentional or are they unintentional? Just think about how your mind is working even right now. You had the intent to join this call, this Zoom. I had the intent to make sure that I was prepared. What are the lies sometimes we tell ourselves? Am I a terrible parent? Do I have more month at the end of the month? I mean, there's voices that said, Daryl, this presentation, you're not prepared. There's going to be some technical difficulties, all those kinds of negative thoughts. And the question is, why do we allow our minds to drag us to that level of awful thoughts? Why does that happen? Why do we do that? Well, we don't really do it when you take an inward journey. Our minds have a way of accomplishing these things without us being conscious of it. Think about that for a moment. Where does it come from? But when you pause for a moment to make your thoughts and gain awareness of all those voices in your head, good and bad, when you pause and practice the techniques to become more aware, so you live beyond just sight, that you start to live and embrace insight. You see with your eyes, but the real gift is learning to see with your mind, to see with your heart, to see with your spirit. And all those unintentional thoughts, just think about them. Sometimes you might be thinking about something that happened when you were a child. Why am I thinking that? Or as I said, fear might take over when you're going into that meeting and you're wondering if you're prepared enough. Or that voice that says, you know what, you're second best, you're not good enough. Or that book I read once, it said, if you're so successful, why do you feel like a fake? Those don't define you. Those thoughts are the kinds of thoughts that you can change. And when you have some of these thoughts, it's really important to be gentle with yourself, to just observe it, not to go to that place of judgment, because judgment is a saboteur. It's one of the negative things, that we're programmed with. And I've made decisions, to be really, really aware of the kinds of intention I want in my day. I want nothing but positive. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not naive. I don't watch the news as much, but I also know you can't have green grass without fertilizer. There's things in our lives that's going to stink. Here's a gift. To make those moments, to make that fertilizer a friend and never losing sight of the end goal. Feel the pain, become aware of it. And these are the choices that we can make. You're in control. You're in control. Choice and change are twins. It's one of the greatest gifts God gave man is the gift of choice. Besides salvation, for those of you that believe that. So let's go to the next slide. Here's a question I want you guys to ponder for a moment. I know there are friends of mine that might be on this call. Some of you I don't know. One thing I do believe is that everyone that was intentional in joining this call, you have a potential to high levels of accomplishment and achievement. How well do you perform against your potential? Think about that for a moment. Let me answer it this way. There's always a couple of ways to do something. We either do it, and we learned this from our parents, you do it the right way or the wrong way. And when you think about that, it's a positive, negative kind of view. Well, I recently got back from Hawaii, and I had the great pleasure of one of my family members who received a high honor of retirement as a senior surgeon in the Air Force. And there were a lot of friends of his that were there, that were Navies, that were from the Navy. I got a chance to meet with F-22 fighter pilots. They don't see things through the lens of right or wrong. They see things through the lens of right or again. So they put focus more on the process, not the end result. Because they know that if you have repetition, if you're a Navy SEAL, the best in the business, the best shape, the smartest minds, and they learn that through mistakes and through challenges and failures, it becomes an opportunity to learn and grow. They commit themselves to the process. This is where again comes into play. It's like Magic Johnson, who was really right-handed and tied his hands behind his back. I think his father did that so he can learn to dribble with his left hand. It was awkward at first, but over time and repetition and doing it again and again and again, became one of the greatest basketball players on the planet. So how long does it take to become a world-class musician, a world-class business owner, a world-class CEO, world-class PTA president, a parent? How long does it take? It takes practice. And when you start to take that inward journey, because when you go inward, it's not a light switch to arrive at that place that you desire. You've got to practice those mental muscles. All of us have had a baseball coach or basketball coach. All of us sometimes work out, we lift weights, and it takes time to build that muscle. But it's no different with the way you think. It allows us to open our mental pathways, our neural pathways. And when you start to understand the power of taking that inward journey, being aware of your thoughts, and whether or not they're negative, and choosing to look at it through a positive lens, it's going to make all the difference in the world. Let's go to the next slide. I talk about saboteurs. I can spend days on this subject. You know, it's a platform called Positive Intelligence that teaches this. It's a great book called Positive Intelligence for those of you that are really interested as you choose to go inward. So you don't have those peaks and valleys of being frustrated and angry. Just be right here. Stickler is a saboteur. This is like professionals. You're restless. Hyperachievers never stop. I was afflicted with that. Sometimes, you know, because we're concerned and we're shy and we don't know people, we become pleasers, but really doesn't speak to who we are. Hyper rationals, all in the data, and may discount those that have an emotional perspective. You know, so saboteurs, you know, that might be an EQ versus an IQ. And right now you look at CEOs, they want the EQ, people that understand behavioral measures. These are soft subjects years ago, but today they carry such weight. Some of you do things and you become a victim. Oh my God. You know, what are people going to think? You know, oh my God, my cover is blown. There's a way to overcome that. A little side story, another basketball story. Kobe Bryant walked into an arena and they announced him and he got a round of boos. I mean, it was horrific. I mean, because he's one of the greatest basketball players, visiting team, and booed him. At the end of the game, one of the journalists interviewed him and said, you know, Kobe, how do you feel when you get booed? You know, Kobe said, he said, boos don't block dunks. Boos don't block shots. It's not about others. It's about you. It's about who you want to become. It's about who you are and how you peel back the onion, you know, to expose the goodness that lives within you. Let's go to the next slide. Let me give you some ideas and I want to open up to some Q&A. Here's the sage voice. Anything that you do in life is if you embrace empathy with self and with others, when people fall short of expectations, when people are not perfect, sometimes we hold people to a high level of expectation, they fall a little bit short. That's okay. The voice might say, hey, they tried. Show appreciation for yourself and compassion and forgiveness. It's so important to have that level of empathy. You know, I see it all the time. I have a special sort of level of empathy and support for special needs. You know, I know how people judge having had a brother and or me a son, or, you know, that might be, you know, might be on the spectrum. And, you know, show compassion, appreciation, that given an opportunity, they can create and do some amazing things. World-class cellists, some that's on the spectrum, people that have no limbs but can play a sport. It's the beginning of you taking a deeper inward journey when you start to have empathy for yourself and for others. Explore. What more can I discover? As I said earlier, be a student, innovate, break out the habits and the summations of holding us back. You know, just all those things that handcuff our ability. Do something different. Do something creative. Then you might wonder, what does this have to do with, financial attainment? Well, it all starts here. You learn how to navigate. You got a fork in a road, choose between which path, and what are the alternatives? Follow your gut. I do that often. And always learn to activate. Reverend Gerald's an activator. When he says he's going to do something, it's going to get done. Michael Lawson, dear friend, former partner of Skadden Arps, community man, behind the scenes, up front. He's going to activate when he says he's going to do something like rebuilding Black Wall Street. He's got a clear course of action. Oprah Winfrey, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Cesar Chavez. Every one of these individuals, have harnessed and internalized everything you see. This is the sage voice. So when you see all these saboteurs, back off, go in a different direction. Let me give you an example. Let's go to the next slide. I told Daryl, he said, Daryl, this is real theoretical. This is fantastic. What are some of the things that you might recommend? So I want to make sure I put this slide in here. And might work for you. This is what works for me. Every day, I have moments of prayer and meditation. I might do something different. I might breathe in for 4 minutes, hold it for 7, open my mouth and exhale. It changes be aware of the voices in your head too. Because when you concentrate on breathing, all these voices, don't be upset with those voices. Just bring them closer to you and observe it. Look at it from 360. Why am I thinking this? Put a smile on your face too. Because when you smile, your subconscious doesn't know that you're angry or frustrated. And you practice it. It's how you get going back to that exercise you do every day. 10 minutes throughout the day. I do it 10 minutes at a time. And again, with frequency, much like those Navy SEALs, much like those Air Force, sergeants, they practice at least 90 minutes a day of daily deep work, no distractions. And it's not the number of minutes, it's the value you bring to the minutes. It's how can you bring 16 hours of value in an 8-hour day? Quick example. I remember I interviewed an individual. His resume before I interviewed him was fantastic. 20 years in banking. He did everything. I had no question that I wasn't going to hire this guy. Then I really interviewed him and I found out he had 1 year experience just doing it 20 times. People think number of years is the same thing as experience or value. It isn't. The question is, when you think about your day, do you spend 8 hours a day really focused? Some people work hard on their jobs and they do it themselves. But if you start to understand the value of the universe, the value of mindfulness, the value of awareness, acceptance of where you are and who you're becoming, to get to attainment, however that's defined. I no longer, smartphones, I use them, I have them, but I know when to put them down. Social media, nah, not much. I don't watch the news as much. My neighbors or anybody else will tell me what happens. Practice more offline habits as nature walks, journaling, reading, playing sports. In my case, I had to do that. I had to rebuild my body. I had to have physical therapy. I had to walk. And I started to notice things I never paid attention to. The chorus of birds in the morning, or the wind blowing, and trees, and neighbors that I hadn't talked to, or the architects of a new building. Just all the kinds of things that were healthy for me physically, mentally, spiritually. All those things, you have a choice on your journey to change, or as I like to call it, rewirement. Let's go to the next slide. Almost finished here, guys. Let's go. I think the next one after Sage. Let's go to the next one.
Going backwards.
Yeah, this is going backwards. Go one more. Let's go to the next one. Meditation. I love this slide. Some people don't, believe in it. And I tend to do it, and I have different ways in which I do it. Meditation is turning off your brain and listening to yourself. Your voice is pretty powerful. It's paying attention to how you feel, but it takes practice. Sometimes I breathe, as I say, and I monitor my breathing. Sometimes the temperature of my breathing. Sometimes in my meditation, I might focus on an airplane. That's the furthest thing I can hear, and just focus on that. And even though I'm going to have intruders in my brain and interruptions, it's okay. Make it a friend and just observe it and go right back to that observation. Sometimes I might just sit in my chair and wiggle my toes. Or I might rub my fingers and feel the ridges on my fingertips. Or sometimes just watching my stomach and chest go up and down, when I get into that place of meditation. It's a real sacred place. It's also the place when ideas start to emerge. So always keep your pencil handy, because you might have a great idea or something you never thought about because you aren't as busy. You get more with less when you learn to sort of embrace, every day is a moment that you have a blank page. Every day, you can build a new habit and new possibilities will unfold. Let's go to the next slide. This is a story I used to tell myself. As successful as I was in a lot of areas, inside there was something else that was going on that I carried with me. Now, by the way, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm a coach. I'm a behaviorist. I'm on the board of Chicago School of Psychology because I want to be a student and learn these kinds of things. But sometimes here's some of the things that I faced with in my career. As an up-and-coming banker, faced with the glass ceiling. Am I good enough? Of course I was. Or the glass staircase. Or how about the sticky floor? That you're so good, the person above you never wanted to promote you. Those are real. Some of us are faced with those every day. But you are good enough. Or you might have that voice and that little saboteur that says, you won't make it. You're doomed. Let's go to the next slide. Until I flipped the narrative. And that was a conscious choice. Regardless of where I was, I tried my best to be positive. Look at me now. Look at yourself in the mirror. That's why I often say in my work, I'm a mirror, not a mechanic. My job is to find ways that you can self-assess as you take that inward journey. Look how far I've come. I am cancer-free. What a blessing. Who would have thought, coming from the streets of South Central, that I would reach the levels of achievement and accomplishment? And I'm not done yet. This is indeed a journey. I flipped the switch. I learned to be more positive. I learned to find that place in my brain associated with peace and calm and serenity and clearing my head and being more focused, seeing the big picture. All of that was a choice. All of this is rewirement. If indeed you make it a priority. And here's the end result. Your relationships will improve. Your financials will improve. Your relationship with your kids will be enhanced. Your blood pressure, mine today was 108, over 78. I used to have blood pressure medicine. It was never under 130, 140. And I appreciate the medications, but to be self-medicated with the awareness of what it is to embrace an inward journey. Let's go to the next slide. I think this might be my last one. I'm not sure. Rewirement is not easy. It is hard work. But I don't know anyone that drowned in sweat. It is important that you understand the power of it. Comes down to one day or day one. Choice is yours as you start to think about what rewirement means. And sometimes we see the end result. It's like in basketball, you may see the game, but you don't see the practice. I'm the vice chair of the board of the music center. I love the ballet, Alvin Ailey. I see the dance, but I don't see the rehearsal. Colleges, high school, or even elementary. My granddaughter, she just graduated from elementary school. I was there, I celebrated, she had cap and gown on. So I saw the diploma, but I didn't always see her doing the homework. So I share that with you in closing before we open the Q&A, is that all of us have the ability to become more. Life is a becoming, not a getting. It's not just a doing. So as you think about the purpose of BWARP, you think about the mission of the Urban League, you think about financial wealth, it's not just about wealth of money, it's wealth of mind, it's wealth of spirit, it's wealth of heart, it's wealth of soul. However you choose to cultivate it requires you to master to the best of your ability the universe. Now, hopefully I shared some things that engaged you, that disturbed you, that at least planted a seed of contemplation, you know, for you to sort of harness these ideas. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what you do, whatever your goals are, rewirement is a requirement. It's where the evolution of change unfolds. So Gerald, I'm happy to open up to some Q&A and get some perspective. But Gerald, if you have any questions for me that you want to sort of throw at me, I'm open.
Well, Daryl, I'm going to turn it over to Jacinda to start the Q&A, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions based on what I heard. But before I do that, I just want to tell you, you said that you were not a psychologist. I will say you don't have a degree in psychology. You are indeed a psychologist.
I'll accept that. I'll accept
that. If you keep doing what you're doing, I'm gonna have you in a pulpit. You know that soon. Well, but so I'm going to turn it over to Jacinda to start the Q&A session of the program, because I know there's some things in the chat that people want to hear. But I will, if I may, have the first question, Jacinda, if you don't mind.
Right ahead.
And that is, Daryl, you know, you said a whole lot, and I hope that the people on the call appreciate the energy and time you put into what you said. But what my question is for me, it's personal. What commitment do I have to make to excel in any part of my life? You covered a lot of stuff, but what do I need to do to go to that next level? What commitment do I have to make to excel at the things I want to do?
You know, it's a great question, because a lot of folks say they're committed, but over the years, and a lot of folks have heard me share this, there's different levels of commitment. And this is important for your listeners and our viewers to understand. First level of commitment is I'll think about it level of commitment. Some people think about wanting to be successful. Some people think about being this and being that, but they never get past I'll think about it. What causes that could be all those saboteurs that creates doubt, fear, complacency. Now, some people will go beyond I'll think about it, and there's a level of commitment called I'll try. At least I'll give it a shot. You know, and that's okay. But, you know, I grew up with a mother who said she didn't believe in the word try. You know, it's either you do or don't do. And if you're going to use the word try, replace it with the word triumph. So, you know, try and can't weren't part of my vocabulary, but I'm very sensitive to observing people, not judging people that try, but for whatever reasons, they slow down or they disappear. The third level of commitment is, you know, I'll do what I can. That's the C player. Fourth level is I'll do what's expected. That's your B. But I look and I study success, and I'm intrigued, you know, and I've met some wonderful people. They operate at the fifth level, Gerald. I will do whatever it takes. I'm glad my doctors did whatever it took to give me another opportunity to be on a webinar. I'm grateful that we have a Martin Luther King who did whatever it took. You know, I've been in the pleasure of Warren Buffett. I mean, just crazy. Does whatever it takes. You know, I'll give Michael Lawson a shot when the Urban League was challenged. Has done whatever is necessary at the fifth level to do whatever it takes, he and his wife, to make a difference. So whatever we do in our personal lives, you know, where are you at? It doesn't mean that you have to get to the fifth level in everything. Just understand the journey of commitment and activation to operate at the fifth level. And Gerald, obviously you do the same with your work in your ministry, your outreach, Parkside. I have been a speaker at those kids when they received their scholarships as the seed that will get them to the 5th level when they say, I am going to be a doctor, an engineer, a scientist, because they have a mindset to operate at the 5th level as long as you understand that journey. So I appreciate that question, Gerald. Yeah, because I operate at the 5th level as best I can. And hopefully that shows in the work I've done over 47 years.
Our first question from the audience is, I would like to ask, when you feel like running out of gas, trying to obtain goals, how do you reinvigorate yourself to continue to the end?
Well, sometimes you just have to pause, run out of gas. Be, wherever you are, be there. I mean, it's not an end. You still have an opportunity for transportation. Sometimes you might want to call on a neighbor. I think the best thing is sometimes we need to stop. We need to slow down. We need to find that internal fuel. I got shut down. I couldn't drive. COVID was, going crazy. I couldn't leave my house. And, I'm listening to myself. I need to find that personal internal gas to sort of find my purpose. So it's okay to slow down, or find that something where not only do you have a passion for something, but that you care about something. Some people have a lot of passion to do some things, when they run out of gas, because, passion is a noun. Caring, I'm gonna go out every day in passion. Well, but if you find something that you care about, or find out the number of people that you've impacted that really got you moments of excitement, find out the origins of who you are as a person. I'm okay with stopping. I had to stop. I had no choice physically. But, go back to your childhood and ponder those moments, where you grew, and there's ways to do that, but just do a deeper dive and not defining yourselves by anything other than your own personal moments of momentum and moments of meditation, or that deep dive you want to take, even if it means moving at a slower pace. Even a turtle it finds transportation to movement. I mean, it may be a little bit slow, but it's okay. Just make those moments where you're down a friend and continue to search for your purpose and seek out those that are friends or professionals that can help nurture you to that next level of transportation or progress.
Definitely. There's beauty in stillness, because it allows you
Absolutely.
to calibrate.
Yeah. Jacinda,
Yes.
before you ask the next question, I just wanted to comment that, running out of gas, being tired, Daryl mentioned caring. The first care has to be self-care.
Yeah.
I was ripping and running and juggling balls and doing so much until I got to a point where I couldn't sleep through the night. So I went, struggled with it, finally went to the doctor, and naturally, good guy, but he gonna give me some pills. And I told him, I said, I'm not gonna take a pill every night to get a good night's sleep. And one of his assistants in his office pulled me to the side so nobody could hear and said, have you tried hot yoga? And I said, did a little yoga in the past, but I didn't know what hot yoga was. And I ignored it for a while, and then I decided to take her up on that suggestion and started taking a yoga class every week, hot yoga. Slept like a baby. So don't be worried about getting tired. Make sure you don't get tired by taking time out and making it just important to rest and meditate, do yoga, do whatever you enjoy. Make that just as important as achieving that next dollar that you're trying to get, and everything will work out for you.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said earlier. What are the lies we tell ourselves? You ran out of gas because the car wouldn't move. Hey, that gives you an opportunity to get out and walk. I mean, just the way you look at it. I see it as an opportunity, not a negative. But again, as I said, leverage subject matter experts in that space, and you'll find yourself, making some different decisions.
Definitely. Our next question is, do you have any recommendations for someone 3 months away from retirement for the next chapter in their life?
Well, I mean, people think about retirement. Sometimes, there's a new term out called, on-job quitters or something. They go to work every day. They work every day. It appears that they're working every day, but they aren't. But when you start to think about retirement, you're probably already retired right now, just mentally. Here's what I would say, all kidding aside, is just take inventory of what you envision, post-retirement. What are the things you want to do? Where do you want to go? Who are the friends you want to spend time with? Who are the family members you want to hug? What books do you want to read? All of those things, operate off your peace, serenity. It's that work in that right brain to find that place of peace, whether it be meditation, yoga, prayer, whatever it would take. Start right now. Even though I knew there was a date certain, for retirement, really, I planned my exit long before that. Now there's things you want to do. Social Security, you want to make sure your medical's in place, make sure your financials, you want to do all the personal kinds of things, make sure you manage your debt, make sure all those kinds of things are really, really important, because that's going to provide sustainability and sustenance. You want to do all those practical things, make sure you look at your debt and your expenses, your liability, your expense. Make sure you know when that pension is going to be turned on. Make sure your insurance is in place. Make sure you look at your health insurance, your disability insurance. All of those things are the things you don't have to wait till a date certain. Get ahead of the game by practicing and doing some of those things early. It's going to make all the difference in the world. So when you arrive at that place of rewirement, you may want to play golf, you may want to read, you may want to join a club, you may want to do something different. It's a transition, because your skill set, your competencies, your talents, your experiences are transferable to anything that you want to do. It's the same stuff. God has chosen you with a certain gift. Just find out where you want to apply it. And you'll be amazed, that you're going to have a wonderful life, as I am in this phase of rewirement, not retirement, and you want to make sure you draw that distinction.
So should we say retirement is a new rewirement?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
All righty. Our next question is, what is the minimum level someone needs to be able to work with you?
I don't know if I put a range on it. I don't think age is really the determining factor for me. Ageism is a real issue, but I'm fascinated by the generational sort of learnings. I had to embrace, and I remember years ago, our board of directors, the average age was over 50. We didn't know what Twitter was and all this high-tech social media. So we had a secondary board of directors 28 years and under. And I love that story because the quality of our decisions changed instantly. And I think where I sit, age aside, on the inside, I'm still 25 years old. Actually, I could say I'm 25 years old. I just had a hard life. That's why I look like this, right? But the reality is, I would love to work with anybody, that they felt that I could bring value, and it shouldn't be. I know many of my friends, we work with young executives. They don't think they have access to somebody like me. Yes, I was busy, but I will find time, usually. My schedule was crazy. I'm very active, but on the last slide, my email, Daryl at therewirementproject.com. I can be reached there. That's probably the best way to do it. Again, DARRELL at therewirementproject.com. I'm happy to pursue the conversation in any way, but age and generation is never going to be a barrier or an obstacle, because when you talk about mindfulness and that inward journey, it's not defined by some construct of age. I don't think that way, and hopefully you'll take heed and follow up. I'd love to spend some time with you.
So yeah, definitely to that person, definitely follow up, but they just sent in another, they want to reiterate, out of the 5 levels, minimum stage, not age.
You mean the 5 levels of commitment?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you can operate. Think about Amanda Gorman. Amanda Gorman, people thought that she was slow, she barely read, kind of like Maya Angelou, if you know her story. No, they were genius. It just showed up a different way. It's the same thing with the genius that for folks in autism, the genius that I've read with people that were defined by those that didn't take the time to really get to know them. Keep in mind, most of the things we hear is opinion. It's not fact. People make decisions about situations and people and circumstance on half information. So I'm not about that. I think that, and people that are is a saboteur. So I have to make sure I exercise empathy. I have to explore to understand it. I have to negotiate, this or that, and let me activate on something and always be a student without judgment, be in a position of observation. And that's the sort of approach and mindset I choose to take.
Love it, love it. Our next question is, can you elaborate on commitment and happiness? Where do happiness fix in all of this?
Well, let me just draw a distinction between happiness and joy. Happiness is, I was happy when I got a new car and it smelled real good, and pretty soon it went away. Happiness can be temporary, the way I look at it. Not all the time. I have different phases of happiness. I think this might be semantics. But for me, I like the word joy. Joy for me is a state of being. It's something that's deep inside. It's like motivation or inspiration. Motivation is say, here's the carrot. If you do this and you get that. Inspiration is something that's deeper. It's like when I'm ministered by Reverend Daryl. Daryl is a dear friend and someone I trust, and he brings a level of understanding and inspiration and joy, or even happiness, because he speaks to the spaces between the words that I hear. It's like reading the scripture. You might get 15 different messages over years. So happiness, and that word sometimes confines us based on how we interpret it. And I don't want to do that for others. If it means something and it's fulfilling and it represents the same thing as joy, then so be it. But I think that words are limiting. I never discount the intuition. I never discount the awareness. There's things that we pick up, things that we hear, we're affected by. It might be a function of how we grew up. I don't know. But I'm happy. I have joy. I wake up with being grateful every single day. And for those that know you, I'm always smiling. I want my subconscious to know you are not going to define how I view a thing, a word, or a circumstance. It's just not going to happen, because I've exercised my gift of choice and change and rewirement to stay in that lane. And I want my mental highway not to be one lane. I want to be multiple lanes, even though I might have some guardrails, because I know if I go over, there's a consequence. I'm not going to do something. We don't run a stop sign because there's a consequence. But I want my neural pathways to broaden, to become more aware, to immerse myself, to find out why I enjoy the word happiness, or why I want to become happy, or to find joy, because it's going to be rooted to purpose, and choice. And I think that's far greater than the limitations in vocabulary. But if it's happy for you, it's happy, then it's happy for me. And I'm happy to sort of dialogue with you to find that place, based on how you define it.
So I'm curious to know, while we're on the topic of happiness and joy, do you feel there's a distinction with the word contentment, or do you think it falls under that?
I think it's all pretty much, they're all cousins. All these words are homogenized. You mix it all up. Contentment, for me, is just a place of peace. I have contentment every day, and part of that is because I live in the moment. Right now, in this moment, I'm incredibly humbled because I'm able to sort of be offers things, to be warped in our viewing officers, but in this moment, I can't control the past. It's part of my history. We carry history with us. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but today I'm contented. I have contentment because I'm breathing. I have a pulse. I'm grateful to be able to hear. I have low blood pressure. So there's a level of peace and serenity and contentment, that nurtures my spirit. And contentment means that. Certain words mean something. And, some words have a negative kind of vibe. And I think words, they tell a story, and how we define it. But again, how we look and understand words, we have to immerse ourselves into why we feel this way and why a certain word affects us a certain way. But I put contentment as part of that same stew of words that mean so much to me, that really get me to a positive place. and positive intelligence. And that's something I'm grateful for. It's another part of the spiritual practice in the words that awaken me and awaken my spirit and gives me a heightened sense of awareness and enlightenment. So I choose to stand in the light, is the way I like to say it. The shadow might be behind me because that's the past. It might represent negativity, but I like to be enlightened, and words do that for me.
Love it. Is there anyone else with any more questions? You can place them in the Q&A or in the chat. All righty.
I just hope Jacinda and Gerald, and we'll be passing on over to my friend. Oh yeah, one question, go ahead.
Yes. How do you make peace with your past?
Wow. I just find good in everything that I've been through. As I said, there are moments that I was faced with some really tough issues. There are people that, made decisions about who I was, the person, that was not true from my childhood. And or if I didn't have the nicer clothes or nicer shoes, I just make peace knowing that wherever I am, there's things could be worse. It's like the story of the guy that complained because he had no shoes until he met somebody that had no feet. I'm always grateful that the things that might disturb me mentally, it becomes a grain of sand on the beach, because that moment, recognizing that I have a choice, is not going to define me the rest of my life. It's like you're sitting, I'm looking behind you and I see this sign that says, this image says, life is beautiful. And if I continue to see that, even in the moment of change or, anger or frustration, I know that somewhere along the line that this is an opportunity, as I said earlier in my presentation, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow. And if nothing else, I'll know how not to be. I thought I had become a great leader because I studied those that were difficult, and I learned what not to do, and I found my peace. But mentally, if it's crazy, I just visualize them living in a grain of sand on the beach, and that's how I sort of deal with it. But it really comes down to our gift of choice. I choose not to let it affect me. I choose to live in that place of positivity. And it humbles me, keeps my blood pressure down, and I'm able to live positively another day.
And I love how you keep bringing up the word choice.
The greatest gift we have,
yes.
Free will. But the saboteurs don't allow us, the subconscious blocks us from having that, because they want to think that, as I said earlier, that they're in control. No, we are in control. So own your gift, own your leadership, own your choice to be the best you could possibly be. And that will make all the difference.
Definitely. Our next question is, you briefly mentioned IQ versus EQ. Can you drill down on the distinction between the two?
Well, I think EQ probably is more associated with right brain. Again, I'm not a psychologist or anything. It's where, we have certain behavioral issues, where we have creativity. It's where we live with interaction. It's where it is. Left brain is more, and I'm left brain, right brain. When you get into, tough sort of data, financial, hard kinds of information. And I think, great leaders have a combination of both, but the EQ have more people dynamic, more people skills, more relationship skills. They're able to have a gift to look at the group dynamic when people are at the table. They also, like I often say, I've never seen a statue of a committee in a park. They're always individuals. It doesn't discount the group as individuals that sit down, but people with EQ know how to assemble a group of people or a board of directors. One person might have a gift in finance, another person might have a gift in marketing, one person might have a gift in ideation, another person might have a gift of futurism. They understand the behaviors. It's why when most companies do engagement scores, are you engaged with your job? Have you embraced the vision? Do you have passion? Do you have a best friend at work? All of those things are the kinds of things versus the leader of yesteryear, that would always say, here's your goal, Here's a report that shows you what your percentage of goal achieved is, and here's how much you get paid. You do that, you'll get paid. If you don't, you're going to be fired. Now that's the extreme, but it's kind of like Henry Ford, who made the card. He surveyed his market and he said to a lot of folks, what do you want in transportation? They all wanted, a faster horse, because they didn't have the vision, as people with EQ might have, to have something beyond the transportation, the birth of horsepower, by the way. When you start to look at how it worked, people wanted a faster horse because they didn't have the vision. People that have EQ are not on a treadmill of consistency. If it's not broke, break it, because they've identified the people that can bring value to the ultimate, sort of mission. Thank God we have cell phones versus a rotary or Zoom. Give me somebody that's going to think outside the box. And by the way, you need all those people at the table, but the leadership is going to be one that recognizes the uniqueness of individuals, respect those individuals, the diversity of those individuals, the visible characteristics of diversity, and all the other dimensions of diversity. Those are the leaders that make a difference.
Definitely. All righty. Our next question is, what was the turning point where you decided to become enlightened and live a better lifestyle? How did you decide it was time?
It's still a journey. I'm a work in progress. I'm not arrived. I mean, I don't, I often say, God doesn't have a watch like we walk. He doesn't think like we think, and I'm glad he doesn't. So I'm not sure that I've arrived. I mean, the different phases in my life, I've been on my own since I was 17. I was a branch manager at the age of 24. I wanted to go to law school. I was a Thurgood Marshall fanatic, and Malcolm X and Perry Mason, for those of you who remember who he was. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I love policy. I love politics, and I've immersed myself in it even still. But I also was a finance person. I love banking. I love numbers, but more important, I love service. And so I think for me, I often say life is one long day. For some, it might be one long night. So I have different phases in my life, but for me, it's building blocks. It's a continuum. I choose to sort of look at my life's experiences and say, man, that was tough, but here I stand, and every day is a moment to be enlightened. From young, I learned a lot from my 11-year-old granddaughter. I just shut up and listen. And mathematically, whatever decision we make, you only have to be right 51% of the time to be successful. That's too close to mediocrity. I want to operate at 80%, not to 100%, because I never grow. So as long as I'm growing, I'm a student, I'm making a difference, I serve, I know when to be out front, I know when to be behind the scenes, and I may, I don't go out and seek congratulations or recognition, but I'm okay congratulating myself in the shower and saying, hey, boy, you served and helped 100,000 kids this year. And having them go to see Alvin Ailey at the Music Center for the first time in this big edifice, and they've never been in a building, or those that I used to bring downtown have never been in an elevator above the 4th floor. I said, oh my God. So there's so much in our lives, but it's not any one thing. Just enjoy each moment, live in the moment. I think you'll be better for it.
Of it, are there any more questions, anyone? Oh, okay. Here's another great question. As a former banker, what basic financial advice would you give to this group?
Well, the secret to success of finance is buy low, sell high, collect early, pay late. I think it's really important to really take inventory of where you're. I don't care if you're in the hole, and if you are not, there's two ways to make money. Either you work or your money works. Which one works harder? Where your money? We got to go to sleep. We get tired. But if you're not diversified, if you don't understand, how your money's, producing, if you don't understand the invisible hands in your wallet or your pocketbook, and there's some invisible hands right now: taxation, inflation, interest costs on debt, obsolescence, not being informed about economics. Some people, for example, I use this is that I remember spending $3 a day on Gatorade or Super Soccer years ago. $3 a day, it's not a lot of money, but $3 times 30 days a month is $90 a month times 12. You know, so I'm spending over $1,000 a year on Super Soccer. So I think you have to become somewhat of an incrementalist. You have to become efficient because, you know, their lives, it's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make, you know, and you want to get outside of the debt. And don't put so much parameter on, oh my God, I'm a certain age, I'm still in debt. No, don't do that. That's a saboteur. They love that stuff. They're sneaky. No, just focus on the moment that you decrease the principal. The average cost of rentals right now is $3,000 a month in Los Angeles. And young people, what are they doing? They're sacrificing having an automobile, so, you know, to subsidize their rent and having a roof over their head. You know, so they're doing in New York, hell, they don't drive cars anyway. Out here, you know, people begin to make that choice because they really don't need a car, they need transportation. So they use Uber and Lyft and all those other kinds of things to subsidize their ability for the bare necessity of food, clothing, and shelter. So there's so much inherent, you know, insurance, health. You want to make sure all those things, you know, are taken care of under the umbrella of personal finance, you know, I think will make a difference. But it's debt management, revenue. And the last thing I'd say to that is finding ways to have passive income. Because for most folks, particularly in urban communities, the only way you make money is if you show up to work. You got to figure out to make money where you don't physically have to be there to make money. You know, that's why millionaires have property, they have stock, they invest in businesses. They're making money while they're sitting on some boat or some vacation. We don't do that. We've got to figure out how to diversify, and we've got to build a community where Black business supports Black business so the dollars circulate more than one time in our community. I'm not talking about that business that moves out to the valley that does well. I'm talking about how they fit within the broad spectrum, you know, of Black Wall Street. You know, and I have a real passion about that as a banker that understands, you know, much like Koreatown, those dollars circulate 23 times before it leaves. And we can't tell that story. It doesn't even happen one time. So there's so much around personal finance, but it's all linked up to mindfulness, your mindset, how you master that universe, and how you overcome those barriers, you know, that are self-imposed that prevent you from being the best that you can be.
Definitely. We got time for one more question. Does anyone want to share? Going once, going twice. All righty. Well, first off, before we conclude Q&A, since we can't see each other, let's all give a virtual round of applause for Mr. Daryl Brown for your presentation.
Thank you.
Great job. I hope that everyone will walk away with just having that holistic point of view of their rewirement for success. So
thank you, Jacinda.
Yes, we'll turn over to Reverend Gerald.
Thank you so much. Before we hear from Michael Lawson, president of the Los Angeles Urban League, I just want to thank everybody for spending time with us this evening. On behalf of Parkside EDC and our BWAR partner, the Los Angeles Urban League, you know, this has been a wonderful presentation. Daryl, you opened us up mentally to get a better look inside ourselves and understand that whatever it is we achieve financially or personally, it all begins with a thought. You kept mentioning the subconscious. The subconscious has to react to the idea you give it. So if it's a positive thought, a positive idea, you're going to have a positive experience. If it's not, you're not. That's a simple way of breaking it down, and you did an eloquent job, my brother. We really appreciate you. And I want to remind everybody that if you appreciate BWARP, you can register at laul.org/BWARP. We're going to have more sessions coming up in first quarter of next year. And you can also go to that website and you can hear presentations like you heard tonight from all the presenters that we've had over the past 2 years. Those presentations are on the Urban League's website for you to go back and listen to, for those of you who may have missed them. And most importantly, when you go to the website, please provide your feedback. Let us know if there's a topic you want us to cover in the future and how much BWARP has enhanced your life. We really want your feedback about the series. Michael Lawson, it's time for you to give us some great words of closing for our special More Money series.
Thank you very much. This has been just amazing. Daryl, you get wiser by the minute. And I love you, my brother. And I'm looking forward to more and more conversations with you and hearing from you. So good evening. As was said, my name is Michael Lawson. I am the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Urban League. And on behalf of the Los Angeles Urban League and Parkside Economic Development Corporation, I thank you for participating in tonight's Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program. Tonight's webinar was the last of the second series of Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program. We hope that you benefited from the information that was shared by Professor Daryl Brown. I want to thank Gerald Smith, Chairman of the Parkside Economic Development Corporation, Brian Williams, Chief Operating Officer of the Los Angeles Urban League, for their leadership in presenting BWARP. I also want to thank, I just can't get past how much wisdom you have gained over the years. We've known each other for a long time. The Rewirement project is outstanding. I am looking forward to reading more and more about it and hearing more and more from you. You continue to grow and you give life to all of us. So thank you so much. And we are going to continue to hear from you as we move forward. I want to thank Jacinda Moten for producing and moderating the BWARP series. And I want to thank my team members, Michael Rodriguez and Ron Carter. Thanks for your commitment to marketing the BWARP series. Tonight, the conversation centered on rewirement and economic parity. The importance of adapting to a changing society is an important discussion we must continue to have. If you are interested in becoming an entrepreneur, you should visit the Los Angeles Urban League Entrepreneurship Center. We will assist you with access to capital, financing, accounting, and technical support for your business. We are conducting in partnership with the SBA a Small Business Navigator program. Please visit our website, laul.org, and sign up for this 8 weeks class. The Los Angeles Urban League and our partners are committed to delivering quality programs and services to the underserved communities in Los Angeles County. We trust that you will continue to join us as we produce these resourceful Black wealth retainment and retention programs in the coming months. We also hope that you will share this information with your families, friends, excuse me. Building generational wealth is very important for our community, as our speaker, Daryl Brown, talked about. We have a mission of rebuilding Black Wall Street here in Los Angeles. We hope that you will join us in this ambitious and timely mission. Please continue to check our website, again, laul.org, for information on the work that we are conducting. Again, thank you for attending our BWARP webinars. We look forward to seeing you soon. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much. Take care, Mike. Thank you.
Bye.